Good afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is David Cook. I'm the Business Development Manager for Mazda Motorsports. Thank you for joining. Tom Long is on with us. Hey, Tom. Andrew
Good evening, guys.
Carbonell, Jared Thomas, and Michael Carter, all of whom have been factory drivers or scholarship drivers. Hey, Andrew.
Hi, guys.
Well, welcome. Thank you guys for being on and for leading this. I'm just going to open for just a couple of minutes. I really would like to thank both of you in particular, as well as Michael and Jared for the help in about an hour from now, specific with the iRacing portion. So Tom Long, who I think most of you know, he's a pro racer, coach, all around great guy, called me a few weeks ago with this idea to offer a webinar that teaches people how to leverage or use iRacing to prep for real racing. Considering the current environment and the interest level in leveraging a sim, we thought it was a fantastic idea. But I also mentioned this because for me, it was another great example of someone wanting to help others during this challenging time. Though, if you know Andrew or if you know Tom and the other guys, it's really coincidental, I think, for them that they're offering this help. But it was just another example for me that I wanted to share. There's been plenty of examples of people supporting others during this time. And even though there are plenty of perhaps more admirable things going on, and with healthcare, the healthcare industry and more. My girlfriend's a PA, for example, so I do recognize that the racing is not quite on that level, but still, it was very meaningful to me to get that call from Tom and to want to do this, to offer his time, and Andrew jumped on board and the other guys did. So I just wanted to say thank you for offering your time and coming up with this idea, wanted to help others. So excited to get the show on the road. But really what Tom and Andrew are going to focus on today in the webinar is really breaking down corner by corner the Road America circuit. But, Road America is, well, we chose it because the June Sprint is coming up to the side of the SCCA runoffs. But really we felt it was a good representation of almost any track, because it's going to be laced, this webinar, with lots of important takeaways and key messages on how to tackle a corner and even some segments of corners, though it's more kind of turn and straight and turn and straight. There's not a lot of compromised corners and so forth, but still a lot to be learned and applied to other racetracks. And then you should be better prepared to do the iRacing portion. And of course, even if you plan just to observe, which you'll be able to do through this platform, you don't need a simulator or iRacing. You're still going to benefit and take learnings from that hour on to really, again, any circuit, whether you get on virtually or not, but certainly for those that are new or newer to virtual racing, it's probably time to learn and be more aware at minimum. So, Tom, would you like to take it from here, sir?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, David, for the introduction. Very kind words, and couldn't have said it any better as far as appreciating everything that you've done to put this together. It takes quite a bit of organization to get this pilot program, if you will, together, of trying to incorporate a new aspect to more than just a webinar, which we have found as being very valuable and very high interest for a lot of Mazda racers, but taking it to another level, and of course not excluding anybody that doesn't have iRacing, we'll be able to include you in this as well. So Andrew and I are going to be doing most of the talking for the next 30 minutes. A quick overview of Road America and all that. Before we do, I just want to break down a couple aspects to this. It's helpful to us if you're able to, there's a chat window. If you have questions throughout, if you could type those in there and we will be able to see them and potentially answer them at that time or wait till a later point and answer them. But that would be helpful for us. And I'll start off by if someone is their first time, never been to Road America before, that would be helpful to know. So maybe, go ahead and mention that in that chat bar to us if you have never been to Road America before. And we'll be able to kind of gauge our audience and tailor the information a little bit better. Just to give you a brief overview of what the agenda looks like for this evening. So David did a great job of laying out a very detailed summary of what all is offered here. But so like I mentioned, the first 20 to 30 minutes are going to be talking specifically about the circuit. And as I mentioned this, I am not seeing anybody type in the chat box. So maybe everybody's been to Road America before.
101 people.
Let me see. Just
Testing.
yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe everybody's been to Road America. Hey, I'm impressed. We have 100 people here, and they've all been to Road America before. This is cool.
It's a good track.
And David, are you still online with us? Am I missing something with this?
I am.
Thank you. As far as the oh, you know what? Organizer and panelists only, I am seeing on the chat. So maybe I need to drop this down and make this for everybody. Excuse me while I try to, oh, I don't have that as an option. I'm trying to.
Yeah, that might not be an option.
Panelists.
Let me work on it while you start with turn one.
Thank you. So 20, 30 minutes, we're going to be going over the circuit. And then the last 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to talk about how the iRacing aspect is going to work. So there's going to be a couple nuances to it because we're actually going to be able to give you personalized feedback if you're driving, personalized feedback like we're riding in the car with you, which will be a lot of fun. From the standpoint of the other details, we'll go over that then, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview as we jump into the first part here. So some of you probably have not been to Road America before, as I'm actually getting a couple text messages pop up that are saying, "Oh, I have not been to Road America before." So I know we'll get the chat function figured out here. Maybe it's going to be a questionnaire or something we can put up for that. But point is that here we have the circuit laid out on a track map, and below this is actually a set of track notes, very very coveted track notes, mind you. It's Andrew's personal track notes. I think for what is it, Andrew? For Spec Miata, maybe.
Spec Miata works well. Yes.
Yeah,
that's
Spec
right.
Miata. And what I wanted to really go over here is that, whether you go to Road America as your home track all the time, or if you go, for your annual pilgrimage to the June sprints, or if you, go every other year or every third year, it's really critical to make sure you have some good notes and documentation so that when you go back, you haven't lost everything that you gained from the last time you were there. So if I just quickly show you what I'm describing here, you'll see that Andrew has very, very detailed notes about each corner. They don't need to be that detailed necessarily. Maybe just a couple points, and I can give you an example. Brake point, what gear, and maybe one or two words that embody the lap or embody the corner. Excuse me. And Andrew, if you want to elaborate on any of this, please go ahead. But as you can see, this is Andrew's notes, and I just wanted to give you kind of some food for thought on maybe something you can do, whether it's tonight or after your next event there.
Yeah, absolutely. I always find it very helpful to not only make notes, but almost make two versions of my notes. One with a very descriptive format of, how you go through the corner and what you're looking for, what to expect, what you're going to feel, and kind of everything you took away from that weekend. And then I also make a set of kind of just spark notes. We're going to break here, we're going to be in this gear, and we're looking for this, or like Tom had mentioned earlier, maybe one word that embodies or encompasses what you're trying to accomplish in that corner. So if I'm just going to scan quickly through my notes, I can run off the spark notes per se, or if I really want to dig into and read the notes on the way to the track, whether it be in the car or on the flight there, I can read through the description and see, okay, just how is it that the car goes through there? What am I looking for? What am I trying to accomplish in each portion of this corner, not just the brake zone or the apex or the track out, but kind of the whole way through.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I'm actually got the information on how to do the questions log. I'm working on it. I have a save the questions log. Where is the questions log? Bear with me here.
Questions would be right above the chat. So instead of going to chat, if you went to questions.
That's interesting. I don't have that. I don't have that aspect. I have attendees, chat. Maybe, okay, so maybe somebody else can see the questions aspect.
I see it.
Okay, so Andrew, maybe if you can monitor that for me, because I don't have that aspect
Done.
maybe while I'm sharing the screen. So appreciate that very much. The other aspect that beyond track notes that I wanted to share with you tonight, and this is maybe what we're going to use as more of a visual aid, is actually photos. If you do a track walk, you can take photos corner by corner and actually get some really useful information out of this. As you can see here, I've got essentially every single section of Road America laid out all the way through the entire circuit. And this is what we're going to use tonight to talk about some things. But you can even take details such as, hey, look at what happens at the exit curbing here, and can you use that? Is that something you should stay off of, and so forth. Where's the runoff? In certain corners, what's important to note, references, and so forth. So these are another set of tools you can put together to complement your track notes, and it will really, I think, get you back if you go there once a year, looking at your notes and going to the corner and say, wow, I really remember exactly what I need to do. Now I just need to go implement.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Andrew.
Tom, to add to that point, it's not always that we get to walk the track, right? There's only sometimes the events are so confined to a limited amount of time that it's hard to actually make it out to the racetrack and walk it and see it. It's so different when you see the racetrack on your feet versus on four wheels. You can kind of see different elevation changes, feel differences in friction, and see a lot of things that you never notice inside of the car. So I'm a big fan of doing the track walk, and having something like this, pictures from your track walk, is great. It's a huge addition in addition to having video from inside of your car. That's great, but to be able to see it like this unobstructed really helps for when you're going back and kind of what to remember. Oh yeah, there's that patch at the apex of 5, or there's a new pavement in turn 14 from entry to exit. That patch of pavement used to only be in the brake zone, and then they've gone on and repaved all the way through the track out. So those are the kind of notes that you go building upon as you come to these tracks year after year, and you can look at the picture and say, oh, that's right, they paved it all the way through. It's not just on entry anymore, and be prepared when you get there.
Exactly. I really appreciate that. So let's dive right in here. So we want to make sure that we talk about each corner just a little bit, but really where I think there's going to be a value add is in about 45 minutes to an hour when we're on iRacing. The first thing we're going to do through my screen share is actually do a van around, if you will, with it's going to be the biggest van we've ever had. I think we got 100 people here that can actually do a van around with us, and we're going to actually talk you through the lap. We'll stop at the corner and then be able to do a slow lap for you. But really, starting out with turn 1, I'll put back up the track map real briefly so you can see kind of where we are on the track. It's a 4-mile circuit, big track. It is a beautiful lap. It's in a great part of the country. There's a lot. Some of my favorite aspects to a racing circuit are at Road America, and turn 1 is a very high-speed corner. As you can see, it's a 90-degree corner. It's very open and flowing. It's going to be 4th gear in pretty much every single car. So just keep that in mind. It's a pretty quick corner. And when you approach it, the key is going to be not to overdrive the entry of the corner. It's going to be making sure you get the braking done a little early, lightly, so that way the platform of the car is staying fairly level and you can turn in at a higher rate of speed. If you have too much weight over the front of the car, the rear is light, and now the rear feels very unstable as you try to turn in for this corner. Andrew, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, you're right on point there. The faster the corner, the smoother my inputs always tend to be. So this being a very fast corner, definitely to your point, very smooth on the inputs, keeping the weight as level as you can across all 4 tires to kind of manage that platform and not upset the balance.
Perfect. Moving on to turn 3. We're now going downhill. Okay, so you can see in this where the bridge is, where the Briggs and Stratton Bridge on the left side is, we go downhill towards the braking zone for turn 3. And as we get there, the road starts to flatten out. And as we approach the apex, now we actually have a flatter road than what we were braking to. So what that means is essentially it's like the car behaves like it's going uphill. And so that means the front tires pick up grip. And you can actually carry a bit more entry speed into turn 3 than you might anticipate if it was just a normal flat corner, or if it was still going downhill like the braking zone was. Very, very critical to get a good exit here, because it leads you on to, as you can see, one of the longest straightaways from turn 3 all the way down to turn 5. Anything else, Andrew?
Yep, I'm right there with you. I tell all my guys, use the bottom of the compression at the bottom of the corner at the apex, use it to your advantage. So just like you said, it's almost like the car's going uphill. It builds grip when it gets to the apex. So as long as you've got the car pointed correctly and your trajectory is looking right, you'll be able to really build a lot of grip at the apex, commit the throttle, and start that run down the straightaway.
Perfect. Real quick, checking in, any questions that are popping up that we need to address right away, or is there something we can do later?
I'm not getting any questions here on my end.
Okay. Did you see anybody, how many folks have not been to Road America at all before?
It still shows like everyone has been there.
Okay. I know I got a couple text messages, so I'm just curious, maybe typing in, if you haven't been to Road America, type that back in, see if Andrew can see that or not, as a quick test. We're going to move on.
Yeah, quick,
Okay.
I can add, I can see the whole questions box. I know it's strange that GoToWebinar, it's different from who's who. There are several people who have not been to Road America.
Very good. Okay. Well, very good. So if you feel like we're rushing, don't worry. We're gonna actually go back over this virtually in iRacing here in just in less than an hour. Like I said, in that big 100-seater van. So as we come down that long straightaway, one of my favorite bridges, the Sargento Bridge. It's actually like a big 18-wheeler that you get to drive under, carrying cheese. One of the coolest things. And you come down to a very, very downhill braking zone into turn 5. High rate of speed, probably I would say the second or third highest rate of speed on the lap. So virtually terminal velocity. And the entry to it is actually a bit curved, it's shifted, and there's a couple traditional in various lines you can take as you make a straight line braking opportunity into turn 5, and we're going to go over that more in iRacing because it's going to be a little bit easier to see from that angle. But you might be able to tell by the track map, just this little left bend in the road before you get to 5 that we're referring to. And the critical thing here is, yes, brake late, maximize that top speed for as long as possible, but also make sure you get the car woed down enough so that you can actually get the car turned in smoothly, releasing the pressure on the brakes and trying to really carry some momentum and take some curb on the inside. These curbs can be quite rough, especially on the exit of the corner, but on the unloaded inside of the car, most cars. I can't talk to, I would even say maybe some Formula cars. I've been fortunate to drive some Mazda prototypes at Road America, and even in the prototypes, we would take some apex curb here because it cuts the corner a bit. It's on the unloaded inside of the car, and it really helps kind of almost rotate the car for you as you go through the corner. Andrew, if you want to mention anything else, please do, and then I think it's worth talking about the exit for there as well.
Yeah, back to your point about terminal velocity. It is, it's one of these corners that you're approaching at with such a high rate of speed, yet the corner itself, the apex speed, is one of the slowest corners on the racetrack. So it's one of those deals that you're always kind of reminding yourself in that brake zone, hold on to that brake pedal, get the car slowed down, because when it's time to turn in for the apex, we have to have the car slowed down prior to that point, because once it's time for turning, we got to be releasing brake pressure. And if we're still trying to add brake pressure and get the car slowed down, well, what's going to happen? We won't be able to turn in and make it to the apex. So keep that in mind, guys. Super high speed, but also one of the slowest apex speed corners on track.
It is, and it leads to another corner. And in fact, this starts to become my favorite series of corners in the track, and it's usually because we know those Mazdas handle so well, and this is like the handling section of Road America. Basically, from turn 6 to the exit of the carousel is like where Andrew and I can attest, and I know Michael and Jared can as well. Like that's where the handling cars shine. And so this next series of corners is just such a fun tradition, I feel like, as you work through it. Leading up this big hill of turn 6, you go under a bridge, and right as you go under the bridge, you're cresting over a brow. I'll slide my pictures down here a bit. And right as you do so, you can see the entry to turn 6 is blind, and you're braking over a crest and then turning in for a corner. And it's a 90-degree left-hand corner, very kind of straightforward if you looked at it from a map standpoint. But as I mentioned, the crest really makes a big difference. So it's important not to get in there too deep, to get in over your head, braking too hard too late, because as you brake hard, what happens to the rear of the car? It's light, it's accentuated because of the crest, and then all of a sudden you have a really loose oversteery race car trying to turn in for a corner. You don't have good support. So the key there is to set the car with a lighter brake and carry the momentum into the corner. Again, the rhythm, the timing is hard because it's blind, but if you can get it right, you can really carry some good speed. And again, this is another corner where some apex curb can sometimes be your friend in getting the car over the inside. And then as you let it exit, if you look at the far right photo, you actually have some room outside of the exit curb as more of a runoff, but it's usable, especially for the Spec Miata guys. Everything paved is usable and more. Go ahead, right, Andrew.
Yeah, no, to your point, it is one of the trickiest corners to me on the racetrack, only because one of the trickiest corners to learn. Let me reword that. Because it's one of those muscle memory deals, right? The first time you get up there, you brake, you turn, and then you kind of see what the track has to offer, and it's more times than not you'll get it wrong. But it's about kind of getting that timing right of where we're going to brake right before that crest. We still want to use the uphill, that elevation, as a positive steering input to get the car turned in for the apex. If you wait too long, well, we flattened out, and now we lose that initial turn-in response. So it's really important to get that timing down, get where you're going to put the initial steering input in, so the car is already turning towards the apex once it lands, and then can start tracking and get off the corner. So it's really fun, kind of challenging at first to get used to and get the timing down. But once you've got the timing, it's really a fun section.
And then we get to turn 7, a very high-speed corner. It's kind of like a kink, if you will, just a slight bend in the road, a 45-degree angle, pulling up the track map for you here. A lot of fun, very challenging to stay flat out through it in most cars. Not all cars are flat out, of course, maybe just a small breathe, but it is a high-speed corner. It is going to be 4th gear or right at the top of 3rd. And I would recommend, if it is right at the top of 3rd, it's worth short shifting to 4th and rolling 4th gear through there, so you're not stuck with having to do an upshift in the middle of the corner at the exit. It's worth getting up to the higher gear and then carrying speed through there. Another corner where a little apex curb can be your friend, helps turn the car, and it also can help just buy you some real estate on the inside of the road, because at the exit, you can see in the lower right corner of my screen here with the exit curb, it's not very friendly. It's very rough and it's very harsh because it's on the loaded side of the car. And certain cars just will not tolerate it. Probably your production cars, some of your GT light cars, GT cars, potentially won't tolerate that exit curb very well. So it's worth using a little bit of the inside curb so that you don't have to use so much exit.
Yeah, and Tom, to your point about that usually being the top of third or fourth gear corner, and almost every car I've driven, that gear change happens in that general area. So I always think of it as, let me kill two birds with one stone. I can lift to shift, that gets the gear in, and also when I've lifted to make that shift, it points the nose, and now I'm going through the turn exactly how I want to be. So kind of use that mentality if that's where your gearing lands when you guys are there next time.
Mr. Efficiency, I love it. Perfect. Now we go downhill into turn 8, another 90-degree left-hand corner. Looks pretty straightforward, but if you remember something about turn 3 where we talked about it's downhill and then the road flattens out, same thing happens in turn 8. And I feel like the longer the weekend goes on, the more rubber that gets put down, the more this corner in particular really grips up. And it's so much so that when you get turned in for 8 with a good amount of speed, obviously not having a bunch of understeer and pushing off the road, but you can really get the inside of the car very light, and again, use some apex curb. And what I mean by apex curb, you can use the colored piece. Some drivers you'll see will venture up onto that white concrete. I'm not going to say, hey, that's going to work and not knock out your alignment, but it might be worth a tenth or two if you're on that qualifier, but be ready for the repercussions, right? So it will grip the car up, help it rotate, because the exit curb at turn 8 is virtually not usable at all. Me as a driver, no matter the car, I will maybe put my right side tires on the white line at the exit, and then use the extra 3 inches of fudge factor, if you will, for the bumps. But if you get a half a car width out on that exit curve, it's going to quickly start jarring the suspension, and you really will lose contact to the ground with the tire, and you're just not going to get much forward drive. It is slower, even though it's a better, more optimal radius, but the wider you go. Andrew, any thoughts on that?
You had me at fudge factor. No, but seriously, guys, to Tom's point, that track out curbing is very abrasive. And as soon as you get to it, if you use any more than maybe half of your tire, it tends to just pull the entire car off of the road. So really avoid that at all costs. When you're at that apex, don't even look at that track out curbing. Look down the road, because we do not want to use it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Fudge factor, that's a technical term, by the way. All right, so now we get to turn, I guess technically be turn 9. I don't even call it turn 9. It's the carousel. And the carousel is probably the most unique corner that you'll ever cross in, at least I can think of, in the United States. I mean, yes, of course, the corkscrew at Laguna Seca is a favorite, but the carousel is the most unique corner that I can think of, in the sense that it just goes on and on and on forever. And there's a lot of unique characteristics to it that I think are worth mentioning. The first is, as we approach it, we have this Johnsonville, it's called Speedville Bridge. Again, another local favorite, Johnsonville Brats sponsor at the track. And really the key is to aim under the D in Speedville, not fully left, but I would just call it, if you didn't have any letters under that bridge, I'd call it 2/3 left, basically your right side tires, center track. And it's easy to figure out what center track is, because there is actually a seam in the road, faint, but you can see it, that is right down the center of the road. So you can put your right side tires there, which is left of center, gives you a little bit of radius for the entry of the carousel, and then you just start to turn. And in here in this photo, you can actually see the delineation between the left and the right side of the road, and that's that difference in pavement on the center patch there. But you start to go into this corner. It's going to be one of those fourth gear. If you're at the top of third, go ahead, shift to fourth, get the shift done. Like Andrew mentioned, it's an efficiency thing, getting a lift in. Most likely you don't need a lift on the entry. I think almost, in fact, every car I've ever driven at Road America is flat out underneath the bridge. Now, what happens after that might change. It might be a brush of the brake, or it could just be a lift, or it could just be staying flat on the gas. Just depends on the kind of car. But I can guarantee you almost in every car, it's going to be flat out to at least under the bridge, and then maybe a speed adjustment. And ultimately, the speed adjustment isn't really because you need the speed adjustment, but it's more so just to get weight back over the front tires. And as this corner continues to curve, you're going to find a lot of the grip is going to be on the inside of the corner. It's important not to get there too early. You can see in this sequence of photos from left to right, we still aren't even at the apex, and we've taken 4 photos worth as we come around this curve. It's important not to get to the inside too soon, but I will say the more aerodynamic grip your car has, the sooner you're going to want to get to the inside. And that's just a function of aerodynamics, being able to take advantage of that. In a momentum car, yes, you can stay a little bit closer to mid-track and then keep arcing it down as you get closer. Front-wheel drive cars, same thing. The later you can make the apex, the straighter you can have your hands across the apex, the better. So you're not the car's not fighting you as you're coming down. Now, finally, you can see in the far left photo on the second row, we get to the apex point. And before this point, you can almost be rolling to full power. One aspect I want to mention, I'm going to let Andrew take it from here, is that you don't understand how downhill the carousel is. From that bridge, that Johnsonville Bridge, all the way to the exit is just immense. It is, I don't know exactly, but if I had to guess, I would say probably a 35 to 50 foot drop in elevation. And that's something you can definitely see when you walk the track. Andrew, please add.
Yeah, no, to your point, it had a huge elevation change. As you come under that Speedville Bridge, right, we're starting at the highest point on that corner, and from that point forward, it just really goes downhill. But it really doesn't begin that downhill transition until about halfway down the carousel, and which conveniently happens about where that lift comes in, or usually in for my Spec Miata drivers out there, about just past where you come up to fourth gear. So you drive it in third gear to the top of third, up to fourth, and usually that's about the time where we want to start transitioning down towards the bottom of the racetrack. And we want to get down into that lower groove that Tom was speaking about, really before that halfway point, before it starts to go down. Because once we get to the downhill portion, if you get caught on the outside half of the carousel, there's just no grip to be had. You'll kind of be just waiting for the car to come back down to the bottom of the corner, and you'll lose time. So I always tell anybody, if you ever get stuck out there, go ahead and give up the speed. Don't just crack throttle 80% and kind of try to get down there. Crack to 20% throttle. Give up all the throttle. Get the car back online, and you'll feel it hook up, and you can get back to power and get a good run out of the carousel. If not, you're gonna get caught at this maintenance throttle, kind of halfway up the road, just hanging on. And then what happens is at the exit, you end up creating a tighter radius, and you have to add steering input, and it gets real ugly. So give it up early on if you feel that you've gone kind of past center, and get back down to the racing line to really have a smooth line through the carousel. If
Absolutely.
it's raining,
Right.
you can live out there all day long. I can't tell you how many people I've passed. They're hanging on the inside line. I'm just full bore around the outside. So if it's raining, go ahead, use that outside. If it's not, please, to the inside.
Absolutely. Great point, Andrew. I was going to say that that dirty gray stuff is your friend in the rain. It makes you feel like a hero out there, although you feel like you're on knife edge running around the white line on the outside there. But good stuff. Moving on to this little simple corner called the Kink with zero repercussions either. But it's Andrew's probably favorite corner on the track, if I had to guess. He's got ice running through his veins. But the Kink is probably the most daunting corner on the circuit. It is probably flat out in most cars. If it's not, it's a small breathe for medium powered cars, and if you have some aero, and then in big GT cars, it is a bit of a break just to get some weight over the front. But it is shocking how fast the Kink is, and as you can see from the track map, it's not much of a corner. it's just a small little bend, but it really does separate the field, because at the exit doesn't leave you very much room for error. As you can see, there's walls on both sides. So the key takeaways are: watch where you're going, not maybe, where you don't want to go. That's important. But also get the car set in a way here that doesn't get the weight transferred to the nose too much too fast. If you have to make a slight speed adjustment, and I would recommend anybody who has not been here before, hasn't been here in a while, make a speed adjustment and then build up to it, right? Start your lift early and then re-accelerate through the corner so you get weight transferred over the back of the car, so that way you have a nice balanced platform and it gives you good confidence and stability. And then you can start to back off how much of a lift are you really going to make. And ultimately at the exit has changed a little bit. There's more width out there now. It's actually a little bit more pavement, but it goes away. So you got to get back on the racetrack shortly thereafter, the exit curb. But it's something you're going to want to build up to. But no matter what, I would be turning in with some throttle, 10, 20, 30 or more percent throttle, just to help balance that car. Andrew, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, like we spoke about early on in this webinar, right? The faster the corner, the smoother the input. So this being one of the fastest corners on the racetrack, it is the fastest corner on the racetrack. We want to make sure we're, inch perfect with our racing line, but also very smooth with our inputs and delicate, really not trying to upset the balance of the car at all. I also tend to find that, the initial steering input actually ends up being kind of quick. It's a little bit of a quick steering input to get the car turned into there. But once we're in that groove and we're going through the apex, it's really all smooth with the hands, smooth with the feel, with the pedals rolling into gas as you come through there, settling the rear like Tom spoke about. But really get our eyes to the corner. Keep your eyes looking down the racetrack. Don't look at anything else other than racetrack, because it's all happening so fast. The further we look, the slower it will feel.
And if you do get into trouble here, absolutely look where you want to go, right? Look way down the racetrack. Your hands will take you where your eyes are looking. So much harder to do than it is said, but that's the right way to do it, is look down the racetrack, and even if you drop a tire and, get it pointed in the right direction. Now we come to this really neat section of the circuit called Canada Corner, Turn 12. I've heard it many reasons why it's called Canada Corner. It feels like you're driving for forever, like you've actually made it to Canada, or if you get punted off here, you're going to land in Canada. I've heard different things, but the point is that it is a really, really fun section of racetrack. You're kind of carving through the trees like through a forest. It's a really neat sensation as we go from the Kink down to turn 12. And this is probably going to be, I think, in almost every car, the highest rate of speed, maybe by a mile an hour or two, or about the same as the front straight, but it is going to be tied for, or if not the fastest piece of real estate on the racetrack by the end of the straightaway. And the braking zone's pretty straightforward. It's a little slick. If I had to, I don't know, Andrew, I would just say this brake zone doesn't feel like it's got a ton of grip in it like some of the other brake zones do, maybe like a turn 5
Agreed.
or a turn 8. But it's a pretty straightforward brake zone from the standpoint of it's straight. You want to kind of give an arc, which we're going to talk about in iRacing, through the van around, that show you kind of the arc to get lined up so you're flush parallel to the left side of the road on the entry. And once you get the car slowed, you're trying to get it turned in, and the road starts to go uphill at the apex. So you actually are gaining grip as you go through the corner. And this is another turn where a little bit of apex curb can really be your friend to help rotate the car and buy you a little bit of room on the inside. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so funny what you mentioned about the brake zone there, right? It's such a straightforward brake zone, but almost feels kind of the most difficult to brake zone to hit consistently lap after lap after lap. I don't know what it might be. It's probably from how we get there and getting the angle right, or it could be all those trees and all the sap coming down, who knows? But
Yep.
it is for as simple as it is, it's kind of it does tend to be a tricky brake zone. So I always try to tell my guys, error, maybe don't, this is one of these brake zones that you really don't want to attack, right? I'd rather get the car slowed down, kind of like we spoke about in turn 5. make sure we don't have too much brake pressure when it's time to turn in. Get that car slowed down before that turning point so we can already be on the bleed phase of our brake pressure, starting to release to get the car turned in. Early turn in, I always find works for me in this corner, kind of turning earlier than what my eyes and what my heart tells me to do. I just kind of, okay, that's a little early, but we're going to do it. And sure enough, I fall right into the groove. I can tell right in Tom's picture, Canada Apex, you can see there's like, new pavement. There's a sealer patch there, and you can tell that sealer patch has been added because obviously that's the line, and those cars destroyed the pavement that used to be there. So look for those patches, use that apex curve. It's very helpful. I find every time I get to that apex curve, I'm like, oh, could have ran 2 more mile an hour through here. And the times you don't, you're kind of losing the front end and you're running out of room at the exit. So get it stopped early, get it turned in a little early, and you'll find your life to be a lot easier through here.
Perfect. And one thing to mention as we get through the exit, this is another exit curb that is just not friendly. And I want to mention it. Here we are, Canada corner exit. It is just like the same as turn 5 or turn 8, probably more like turn 8 actually, as far as the severity of it. Something you do not want to use. You can, put left side tires on that white line, but the further over you get, the more the car feels like it just gets sucked over there, and it just goes downhill. I mean, it's actually physically going uphill, but the exit speed's not good. So just keep that in mind as you exit. Now we come up to turn 13. 13 is a fun corner because it's blind. There used to be a bridge that went over the track there, actually. Now it's a tunnel. But so you're aiming for an apex that you can't quite see at turn-in. And a couple key tips about 13. Traditionally, everybody always turns in earlier because you can't see. So, fight or flight, and you're thinking, oh, I got to turn, but ultimately you want to wait to turn just a little bit later than you think. Obviously, there is a point when it can be too late, but I tend to think it's closer to the end of the curb on the right, the entry curbing on the right. Not at the very end, but closer to the end, and then that will get you to the apex curb. And this is an apex curb that I can guarantee you do not want to touch. The reason is that because you're kind of cresting a hill, it accentuates that, and it'll actually hop the car. And potentially, if you're in a rear-wheel drive car, it'll kind of kick it loose potentially, or create some wheel spin. In a front-wheel drive car, it'll just hop and create wheel spin. So it's something you want to get right down to that white line on the curb, but not use any more than. I'll let Andrew talk about any input he wants to add, plus please elaborate on the exit.
Yeah,
Andrew,
so
apologies for interrupting. Can we just take a moment? I'll ask a couple questions out loud if you guys could answer.
Yeah,
please.
All right, so Dean asked, hopefully it's okay or his son's not on. My son jerks the wheel into the kink and then small input after that. Is that wrong?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of what I was referring to earlier on. In the Spec Miatas, I tend to see the driving style be a little bit of a kind of chuck the car in there and then catch that slide, and run it through. I mean, that's very fast way through there. It's something I definitely advise you to work up to. I'm not going to tell everyone, hey, just get up to there and chuck it in and hang on and off you go. But that is not wrong. I'd have to see the video and see what's happening. But when I go back through and I think about how I do it, that tends to be kind of the input. You got to get the car turned initially, get it rotated early, get it pointed, and then you kind of manage that angle as you come through the apex.
And one thing to add to that, I totally agree with Andrew. I think what's going on here, and this is kind of a fun phenomenon, is the reason why maybe that fast input works. Dean's son is getting the car into a bit of a slip angle and rotating the car, and that slip angle is actually not only helping point the car in the right direction, but it's actually creating a bit of an additional amount of grip and slowing the car down. Like a slide, it's just a tick over the amount of slip angle the tire might ideally want, but it creates a control balance. Obviously, a good set of car control skills and a very, very acquainted driver with their equipment to do something like that.
And good timing.
And then a carousel question, just backing up. For the carousel, it looks like at the middle, there's a bit, it's a bit of an uphill. Is that correct or misleading?
No, in the carousel, you start from the highest point in the Speedville Bridge, and then it kind of just works its way down. There is a point that you see almost a definite, like, oh yeah, that's where it starts to drop. But I, I don't believe from what I know from the times I've walked it, it doesn't go up to that point. You start at the highest point, and then there's a definite point where it starts to drop.
I would agree with that. The highest point, you kind of maybe climb from turn 8 to the bridge a couple feet, but the highest point is the bridge, and it just goes downhill, flat, and then downhill from there. Yep.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank you, and thanks for the questions, folks. Keep rolling them in. Apologies, I can't see them to stop with the timing, but David, thank you for bringing that to our attention here. We're gonna wrap this up here. We got just a corner to go. The exit of turn 13, a lot of pavement out there. I don't know, Andrew, did you mention the exit
No,
already?
no, I didn't get there. Didn't get there.
Just real briefly, 13, as you carry the speed and is blind, we talked about that, not to use the apex curb. You can really let the car unwind, and there's some extra road out there. And the road we're talking about is actually this access road. From an ergonomic, or not ergonomics, but logistics standpoint, sometimes when they checker a test day session, instead of driving around the whole 4 miles, they'll actually have you pull off at turn 5 and go back into the paddock. And so what that cut through is for 13, this is like where emergency vehicles stay and things like that. But you can use that extra bit of road there before you hustle the car back to the left to get set up for turn 14. Turn 14 is a tricky one, and it's such a critical corner. The road is actually curving, hard to see about the entry here on this far right photo, but the road curves to the right as we brake for the corner. And a great reference point is if you look at turn 13 exit photo, you can see this, it's not a bridge, but it's just like a big sign. And that's a great reference point to say, do you brake at that point? Probably going to brake after it, but gives you a guide as to where to brake. There are brake markers on the far left side, but they're out of view, and especially because the road is curving to the right, your eyes just are not looking left, and they probably don't need to be looking left. Maybe you pick it up in your peripheral vision, but the key to this corner for me is light brake, another platform corner where you really want to have the rear set, not braking too hard. And the reason is because you're turning and braking, so you don't want the car loose. If you do too much of that, it's gonna over rotate, and then it really allows you to get off the brake and just hustle speed through the center of the corner, because this exit, you see what's at the exit, the biggest uphill climb of this track, all the way up to the start finish.
Yeah, most common thing to do is to overslow the apex in turn 14. And what a lot of people don't realize is how long that corner is. And if we go back to what Tom was saying, the reference marker that we use on the way in, that hangover sign, right? It's a good tool to use, because really, if you were to look at those signs on the left side along the fence line, your eyes would be so far away from where they really need to be that you never make it into the corner, or you would just totally overslow the apex. So we have to have our eyes down all the way into the apex or even past it to then be able to judge our entry speed and judge how quickly we release off that brake, or how much brake pressure we hold. But if you find yourself looking at those braking markers, or even at where your turning point is going to be, I guarantee you will overslow the apex. Get your eyes down into the corner looking for that apex, and that'll really help on the entry speed. Use that hangover bridge as kind of a reference mark, and find yourself, okay, I drove it a car length past the bridge, and with a 6 pedal that felt fine, or man, that overslowed it, let me try a 4 pedal, or let me try 2 car lengths past the hangover sign. We really find your place so that you're not finding your minimum speed until the apex curbing. If you find your minimum speed before that apex curbing, and then you're just gonna have to wait to get to full throttle, you have to make that adjustment for next lap. Always work that corner backwards. Say, if I want to pick up the full throttle at the apex, well, where do I need to brake, and with how much brake pressure, so I'm still decelerating all the way to that point. I don't want to find that minimum speed anytime before the apex.
And what Andrew's referring to is about the number of pedal. I don't know, sometimes his car might have multiple brake pedals. I'm kidding. But 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest threshold braking. When he said 6 pedal, that means maybe just over, 50% pressure. That kind of, it's a coaching scale, how you describe a brake pedal pressure. So thank you guys for listening in on this. If there's any additional questions, David, maybe you can mention those now, and that will kind of bring us into this next component we're going to talk about for our iRacers, how this is going to work. And for all of you that are not going to be iRacing with us tonight, please stay tuned and stay with us, because my screen will share within iRacing, and you'll be able to watch what's going on and as we talk our van around. And if you do care to watch others driving and us giving feedback, that would be available to you through just staying on the webinar platform.
3 questions, gentlemen. Sam, hey Sam, do you use any of the runoff rumble strips at turn 1 or turn 5 exits?
I think that's something we'll definitely mention in the van around. Both are usable. Just how much do you want to use? It depends on the type of car, but there's no harm in it besides maybe an alignment change or something. But I don't know, Andrew. I mean, what do you think? It seems like a half a car width, no harm, no foul for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the type of guy, I try to use no more than half a car width in 1 and 5. Sometimes in 1, if you really get it wrong, you could actually go beyond that rumble strip, and there's a pavement on the outside, and you can run that and then back on. But I mean, that's really kind of going out of your way and almost out of track limits. But I personally, I really try to avoid that exit curbing in 1 and in 5. I see a lot of people use it in 1. You can use it, but man, it is aggressive. The 1 and 5 seems to really hurt your run up the hill to 6, whereas the exit in 1 doesn't really do much more than hurt your alignment. So it's up to you.
For turn 6, the curbing on the inside, so I guess the apex curbing, do we use a little bit of it?
Absolutely. I when I turn in, I'm looking for the concrete, so like Tom spoke about, right? We have that red and yellow concrete apex curbing, sorry, just apex curbing. And then on the inside of that, there's like the second step of just unpainted, unfinished concrete curbing. I look at that. I never use it, but I look at that, so I adjust my hand speed, and my hands almost get to it. But I only use the red and yellows. I stay off of all the actual exposed concrete at the apexes.
Andrew, is that helpful? I'm kind of trying to zoom in on it.
That's
okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
That's it right there. So I'm looking at that, but I don't actually ever get to it.
We've got 3 more questions now, but I actually got 1 text about iRacing password. Do you guys want to share anything about iRacing to get them set up while right before I ask you these 3 quick questions?
You've got to guess what the password is. I'm kidding. Yes, yeah, we're gonna go over all that. Absolutely. Is there
Mazda commercial?
Is there? That's right. Is there? 2000s maybe. I'm not that dated. No, I'm kidding. Is there any other specific track questions that maybe we won't cover in the van around or something like that?
I'll ask them. You decide to answer them now or then.
Thanks.
How far left is entry to turn 14? Probably deal with in the van around.
Yep.
Best passing spots or where not to try it, maybe the van arounds. Why does it say tap and pump brake often at Road America?
Good questions. Man, I'm giving away Andrew's trade secrets. Sorry, buddy. No, I'm kidding. Great questions. We will talk about 14 entry in the van around, but we can real quickly mention best passing practices. Andrew, do you want to real briefly just mention those?
Yeah, so at the end of each of the long straightaways is always a great passing opportunity. So into turn 1, into turn 5, into turn 12. I'd say turn 12 is probably the trickiest out of those bunch, only because you're kind of coming in at an angle into that brake zone. So to really get it right, you have to be up alongside that driver. It's hard to tell me where not to pass, because coming from racing Miatas and what we can do is turn, I consider everything a passing opportunity. But I would avoid places. Here's the deal: at Road America, it'd be so easy to start a fight with someone, and you pass them in a corner that's going to slow both of you down, and then you're going to lose touch with that pack ahead of you. So I'd say when you're trying to decipher what's a good passing opportunity and what's not a good one, I'd say where you lose the least amount of speed and can stay in touch with the lead pack, because as soon as you start fighting that guy, whether he's in front of you or behind you, you're going to lose touch to the pack ahead. And it is such a drafting dependent track that you cannot afford for that to happen, because you're going to fight one guy and you'll lose 3 or 4 spots from, the other 4 that are coming hooked up in a train.
Yeah, agreed. Well said, Andrew. The only other areas I would mention, if you're passing lap traffic or cars that are out of class that are slower, turn 3 is an obvious one for sure. Turn 6 kind of goes along with what Andrew's saying. Sometimes setting them up for outside of 7 going into 8 is better, but it just depends on the scenario, of course. But 8 could be another good one. And then 14 goes along with what Andrew said. Maybe focus back up, breathe the car a little bit, and then focus on getting the run off the exit. But yeah, that's what's so much fun about Road America, is there's so many great passing opportunities around this circuit.
Absolutely.
Guys, last question. If you could address during the van around, what do you think about entering carousel on the right, move to the center, and then apex? It's a good question from Mark. Hey, Mark. Guys, thank you for the webinar help. I'm excited for the iRacing portion.
Yeah, perfect. No, and that's really good. I'm guessing that line that Mark is mentioning might work in a high-powered car, maybe really well. We'll talk more about that. But I could see how that could work for certain types of cars. One thing, just because it got asked, remember to pump and tap the brake pedal often. What Andrew is referring to, in certain cars, because of all this curbing we're talking about, it actually shutters the caliper and rotor enough that it knocks the piston back and the brake pad back off the rotor. So much so that sometimes when you're going down to turn 5 and you go to push the brake pedal, all you've done is displace the amount of fluid that it got pushed back from rattling it over the curbs. So in other words, what Andrew's saying is, with his left foot, he taps the brake pedal once or twice, not even engaging the brakes, but just enough to turn on the brake lights to get the pads back flush with the rotors, so that way he has a nice firm brake pedal and can outbrake all his competitors. Does that sound good, Andrew? Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, absolutely. You want to make sure that every time you go to the brake pedal, it gives you the feedback that you're expecting. So giving it a little tap and a little pump on the way to the brake zone, and feeling that you've put the pads back up against the rotor, when you go to that pedal what you're going to get, versus kind of rolling the dice and showing up into the brake zone and maybe getting a half a pedal or no pedal. That's a surprise. So I try to avoid that, especially at a track like this that has very abrasive exit curbings and apex curbings. It's going to move the pads around. Let's get those back to the rotor before each brake zone.
Perfect. That's a really, really good tip. And thanks everybody for asking questions. Of course, this is actually going to stay live, so you can keep asking questions as we're going around on the van around. Okay, into the iRacing details here. So we're going to give you all a few minutes to get started getting into that, logging into that. If you haven't already, you don't need to worry about it. But essentially, I'm going to give you the quick rundown of how to get in there. And perhaps, I don't know if Andrew can type or David can type, just so it's written as well, so folks can follow in the group chat. But what we're going to do is we're going to go log into iRacing. For those of you that are participating in driving in iRacing, right? Everybody can still listen and follow along here in the webinar. And we're going to be looking for hosted race session. And what that looks like, because I do have my screen already up. Actually, it's not going to be because I'm already in the session, but it's going to be in your main area. You're going to have join a session, and what you're going to find is you can sort it by name. It's under my name, Tom Long. Sort it by name, and the host session name is going to be called Mazda Grassroots Racers, just like the Facebook page that David's been doing a fantastic job of keeping up to date and doing weekly videos for all of us. So it's going to be Mazda Grassroots Racers, and the password is Zoom. Is just all lowercase ZOOM, and that will get you into the hosted session. It is going to be with the third generation MX-5 Cup car, the NC chassis. Figure that's probably a really good car. Not going to be the same for everybody, but it kind of feels very similar to a Spec Miata. Maybe a lot of you T4 and STL racers use that type of platform, and it's, I think, as Andrew pointed out, to me, one of the easiest cars to drive in iRacing. So, so we chose that platform for this. So if you don't have that, it's a free car within it. So it's literally, if it tells you, hey, you need an update, it should take 2 seconds to go through and get you there. But get logged in. Last detail here is that
Most importantly,
I'm sorry.
most
Andrew?
importantly,
Most importantly,
yeah.
yes, is that in order for us to talk to you within iRacing, we have to create a radio channel for you, okay? So we could talk to everybody as like all teams, but we don't want to do that. We want to talk to you specifically. So what we have done is Jared, Michael, Andrew, and myself have already inputted your name into iRacing within the session as a radio channel. And the way you do that is once you're logged in to the session, and you don't even have to be in the car yet, you can type, hit F10. That's going to pop up the radio box, the radio channel box. And what you want to do is type in your first name, last initial, last letter, last name initial. So for me, it'd be Tom L. And what that'll do is, because we have who's already participating within iRacing, what that'll do is that'll allow us to talk to you directly. We'll transmit to you directly, and you need to have that name already in your radio channel list for us to do that. So first name, last letter initial, all one word, and we'll see you in 10 or 15 minutes over on the iRacing side. And please, if there's any questions, go ahead and type them in now that we can answer.
Tom, to add to that, once you've inputted your name and last initial, you can see right there where it says scanner and transmitter. You're going to want to click on your name as a scanner and then your name as a transmitter. That way the communication is just between the coaches and the drivers, and you're not hearing the whole session. Maybe for the van around, we want to scan all teams so everyone can hear. But once we get the session going, guys, make sure to put it specifically to your channel.
And just to thank you, Andrew. Just to complement what Andrew's saying, can you see that on my screen right now?
Yep.
Yep, perfect. So I love it when a plan comes together here. So
Yeah,
so F10 gets you this radio box, and you'll just add your name, and you can see here all teams. You'll click on all teams. That's what we're going to do the van around in. And then you can see I've already inputted my drivers, not all of them, but some of them, into the radio channel list here. And I will be clicking on your name, and I'll be only talking to you as we go. And then to Andrew's point, on the scanner side, so you don't have to listen to everybody, which in theory, nobody else is going to be talking. You can also click on the scanner side, just your name. So only anybody talking on your channel you'll be able to hear or communicate with. All right. And David, if there's any questions, feel free to shout them out.
I think we're good, Tom. We had a question. All it said was with a space or no. I believe that was in reference, okay, to the name, but with the space, okay.
No space. All one word. Yep, no space. All one word. So Tom L, Andrew C, Mark L, Matt F, that kind of thing. All one word. Okay, I'm already seeing a lot of folks joining here. We got Aaron. Aaron might need to I'm on mute.
And just an FYI, Tom, one of you gentlemen is going to have, I think, a driver with his iRacing name is Richard, but his son is driving Dean.
That's just fine. Can you still hear me, David?
I've got you, Tom.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's just fine. Just make sure that the name you registered under is the name that you put for the radio channel, not the And I'm actually going to make a note of that. David, if you would just mention that to me one more time. You said it's Rob.
Yeah,
What was the last
Richard. So my iRacing name is Richard, but my son is driving Dean.
Okay.
What's the last name?
It's DYBDAHL.
So Dean D.
Yeah,
Got it.
and I think it could be Richard D, but you guys will figure it out.
Okay, perfect. Well, I see we got Aaron Jinson in the session who he might be able to do some coaching. He was top 5 in the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup E-Series last week. So he's in the session. This is terrific. I do see that there's folks already driving out here, putting our tax to good use. So what we're going to want to do is probably, if you could, report to pit lane so that we can do our van around to start, please. So, all right. So as everybody gets logged in, I'm going to go ahead and get behind my my steering wheel here. My van to do the session, and we'll see you guys in just a minute.
Tom, while you're doing that, I'll just make note that we've ranged in the low hundreds for attendance, and we've only dropped 3 people as far as this transition to iRacing. So a lot of passionate people giving up an hour or 2 of their day or evening, as you guys are, and everybody is appreciative. But really great to see people are sticking to it. Hopefully this is adding as much value as I think it is. So just wanted to pass on that goodness.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear. Glad to have everybody. And yeah, like we said, this is a pilot program for us. We haven't done this before, but I think it's going to work quite well, and at least hopefully give you a little bit better insight into what all potential is out there within iRacing, to use as a platform just to practice a track you've never been to, or to touch up on. I am inputting my radio names for my my folks. Okay. Let's see here. Andrew, do you have a copy on your channel? Hey, just doing a test. I'm trying to think, how do we know when everybody's in that's supposed to be in? I see the dialog box on the bottom right. Is there a way to expand that to? Okay, there was a question about how do you get the radio channel to pop up to add your name? Again, it's F10, function 10. Copy you loud and clear. Yep, so I'm going to go to all teams and tell everybody to report to pit lane, checkered flag, so we can start the van around. Andrew, I can use my car just because I'm sharing the screen right now, okay? Okay, David Cook, can you see the in-car right now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yep, we got you there for the radio check. So we're going to actually go around the track, and Andrew, if you can add in input, and please, Jared and Michael, please do the same. All right, guys. So here we are heading down pit lane, and the key here is you need to stay right on the exit on the blend line if you haven't been to the track before, and then quickly it goes to a dotted line. You can come on over. And right here, this is the access road on the left with the 4 marker that Andrew was referring to that he uses as a reference in his notes. Really important to not get in here too deep, because remember, we want to keep that rear platform, that rear stability as we get through the apex of the corner. All right, let's see here. If you back out to the main screen, you should be able to scroll through the drivers, right? And find my helmet. Sorry, I missed that detail in explaining. Why would that be? Is there an option that I'm missing? Okay. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah, Tom, I see you here. It's very laggy compared to usual.
Okay.
We might have to abort this van around mission and go straight into right seating.
Fair enough. That we can certainly do that. Is the webcam view working? Like, can you see where I'm at the apex of turn 1 or no?
Yeah, you're at the apex of 1 right now. It's a little laggy in terms of how it's displaying, but it's there.
Okay, understood. It's not giving you a good view of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's like frame by frame.
So Andrew, what would you say is the value there then? Can you see or no? Like, is it worth doing it this way, or should we go into coaching folks? And obviously they're gonna, on the webinar side, gonna be able to hear the feedback we're giving through this.
Yeah,
But
so you know what? Instead of everyone instead of going through iRacing, we can sit here and watch your screen as long as it's going to be park it here, talk about this, park it there. But in terms of watching it at speed, that's not going to work.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well then, you know what I think we can do. Yes, I am. I'm down in turn 2 or turn 3 right now. Oh, that's strange. All right, let me back out of this and see. Huh. Well, I can drive around the track. I'm not able to exit the car for some reason. I'm not sure why that'd be. Do we have an idea how many folks are in the session? Like if you look at the hosted, we'd have to back out to do that, I guess. But
Yeah, so in the session, we have, well, I guess it's not exactly numbered correctly. Well, 1, 2. 29 people in the session.
okay. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go around the track and do our van around like we were talking about. So we'll do that real quick, and then we're going to get on to the private. So we'll get on and do the van around, and then we'll do the private coaching side of it here in just a second. So we get down at turn 5, and you can see that the road is curved here as we approach the entry into the braking zone. And the key is to try to have a straight line here as we get down to the turning point, ending up on the right side. Andrew, feel free to add anything, or Michael or Jared, as we go through here.
I want to hear from our scholarship drivers.
Scholarship drivers, Mr. Jared Thomas, Michael Carter, feel free to add in here as we go through.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We got you on the iRacing.
If that's Jared, I think that is. I'm not really able to hear him. I think we'll need to make another adjustment here.
Okay, copy that, David. Fair enough. Okay, understood. So the volume's not coming through for Jared to speak. So here we are under the bridge of the carousel, starting about 2/3 of the way to the left, and then that allows us to work our way down to the center, and then eventually all the way to the inside as it keeps coming and building the downhill portion to the apex. There you can see the curb. And then that lets us to the exit. And now we turn in at the 1 marker for the kink and let the car unwind all the way to the exit. Andrew, are you catching what's going on the screen or no?
Yep, I've got you driving into the brake zone now for a turn for Canada corner, turn 12.
Perfect. Okay, so then we let the car exit out of turn 12. I'm going to do one more lap here, guys. So thanks for bearing with us through the technical stuff. Turning in at the end of the curb of 13, turn in, not using the apex curb, letting it come out to the right. There's all that road on the right we were talking about. And then coming left, and this was a question in 14, how far left? We come all the way left, let the car bow out, and then down to the inside, use some exit curb. Michael, I can hear you on my channel. Give me 1 second. I'll just, I'm not scanning just my channel, but I'm doing all teams. So here we are down the front straight. And then we get to that access road on the left, braking. Remember, 4th gear corner, bends it into the inside. You really want to get down to the apex curb and then let it unwind out to the exit. Remember, downhill braking zone, 3rd gear, the road starts to meet us. We get all the way down on the inside, let it come out wide.
Another easy reference there on entry to turn 3 is the break in the wall, driver's left. There's a huge, very easy to spot break in the wall that I like to use as a brake reference, just like I use the access road in the entry to turn 1.
Perfect. Great point. And Andrew, everybody can hear you because you're one of the presenters as well. Here we are with the brake markers into turn 5, getting down to 3rd gear, 2nd gear in some cars, down on the inside now. Let the car unwind. Remember, not too much exit curb, just a bit. Blind entry here, just a brush of the brakes, and maybe like Andrew said, about a 6 pedal out of a 6 to 10, out of 1 to 10 and a number 6 pedal, back to the left side, and then over the curb for turn 7, before we get it back to the right for turn 8. Andrew, go ahead and take the rest of it from here.
Copy. So big hard brake zone here on the way to turn 8. Get the car slowed down so you can bleed off the brake pressure. Trying to release most of that brake pressure by the time you transition to that dark pavement. Then we'll be left of center as we enter the carousel here, left of center under the bridge. Like Tom said earlier, aiming for that D in the Speedville. Staying about mid-track. Don't want to use any more than mid-track here than about tight through the second portion of the carousel, keeping it low, keeping it down to the apex, using all the road at the exit while we drive down towards the kink here. Remember, we're going to be turning here at about the 1 board, get the car turned in, and then nice and slowly but surely rolling back into the throttle. Remember, smooth inputs, fast corner, smooth inputs. Keep the eyes up, use all the road as needed. Looking down the road, we're going to get back to the right side here as we prepare to drive a straight line into the brake zone for Canada corner or turn 12. So we'll be about mid-track all the way to the right, then bend the car left to brake into a straight line for turn 12 here, but be at about 3.5. Get it slowed down, get it turned just past the 1 board, early apex, hold the apex there. Remember, in those pictures Tom showed us, there's a big seam, a new patch of sealant that really adds a lot of grip at that point. Turning at the end of the entry curve here for Billy Mitchell, turn 13. Want to free up the wheel as you come through the apex because the car does build a lot of grip there at the apex point. So free up the wheel, let it use the whole racetrack, then back to the left side of the road for turn 14. Using all the road, light, long trail brake, carry the brake in there, keep the weight on the nose, be patient, get to the apex. At the apex, we're looking down the track, picking up throttle, using all the road as needed.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and then I think we can get into, David, if there's any questions from the webinar section that we could answer, please feel free to mention those, but we'll talk that as our van around for Road America.
Tom, I think we're good. Maybe a consideration, I don't know if this is the case, you may have a few extra windows open on your computer. Good recommendation by Karen to check that. I suspect you already have, but and Jared, I don't know if you're able to speak and we can hear you. We want to give it another quick go.
Test. Can you?
You're on, buddy.
You got a copy? Okay, good.
Right. Welcome.
Nice to
All
see
right, I
everybody's in
will
here.
shut that down.
Shall we get
Shut
this
that
party started?
down. I think so. I'm going to try to exit out and start to jump into folks' cars. So everybody, you can go ahead and start to lap, and then we have devised the list out. So Michael, Jared, Andrew, and myself will be breaking off and jumping into cars with you as we go around, and we're going to just spend the next hour plus just jumping from car to car and helping you for a couple laps. No pressure. If something happens, we'll come back to you, and you can get back going again.
Nicky. You're transmitting to all teams. Go ahead and make sure on the transmitter you click on Nick I. That's great. The whole chat room heard your ethnicity there. Check, check.
All right, Tom, would you like anyone to mute? Andrew, Jared, or Michael, or you to take lead here? How do you want to proceed?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess we're gonna be able to hear everybody. So if you guys would like, if you're not having any technical difficulties, I will mute on the webinar, and let's use Andrew as the webinar coach voice for now. Is that good with you, Andrew?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm over here coaching some. Oh.
Yep. So what I'm thinking is we're just going to use your voice to do the talking for the coaching session. Like when you transmit, it's going to pick you up on the webinar as well, correct?
Okay, so just to hear my voices.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. I'm
works.
logging back in to see if that helped for me. So I'll mute for now until further notice. Sound good?
Hey, Nick, where are you at? For some reason, I can't get in your car now. Really? All right, I'm on board. Where you
Sounds
at?
good, Andrew. Go ahead and leave your mic unmuted, and so we'll listen to you for your feedback.
Copy that. I haven't seen anybody. What is that? Hey, Tom, I think I'm hitting some sort of little technical glitch here. I'm having a hard time. Once it gets to his live view, it only gives me the scenic options. I'm not allowed. Doesn't allow me to sit in the car anymore.
I wonder why that is. We have not had that issue before, right? We can ride along with other people, like even in a big session, you can kind of see what the leaders are doing, if you will, right?
Right. But I'm having an issue right now. Hey, Nick, I'm having an issue
So,
here.
so
As soon
I
as you
can,
last heat, it takes me out of your car.
give me 1 second here.
All right. Are you live on the front stretch right now?
So
We're on
Renaud Roland is, and I'm going to add him, for instance.
here. Down to the apex. Nice patience. Roll it. Through the brake in the wall here for the brakes on the 3. Down a gear. So we'll want to be 3rd gear next time by.
So we're through turn 5 here. So if that's not Andrew's guy, Andrew, go ahead and mute yourself if you're not the one broadcasting. Who is working with the green car?
Tom.
Okay, if Tom's having issues, how's Jared
Yep,
doing?
I'm here. I'm here. I can hear you guys. Do you hear me okay?
I've got you, Tom.
All right. So I'm going to talk to Renaud here. Renaud, can you hear me? Radio check. All right, perfect. Don't let me distract you. We're just doing a check here. So we see you in the carousel, and we're going to give you some feedback here. All right, nice job through there. Good job using the arc on the entry, using all the road at the exit, a little bit of apex curb and the exit. Very cool here. Yeah, looking for the apex curb and then starting feeding on smooth power. Good job. There you go. Looking for the apex curb. Yep, get it a little earlier turn next time. Now remember, turn early here over the apex curb. Good, good. Let the car unwind. Perfect. Same thing here, over the curb, squeezing power. Very good. And now we're trying to get the car set over the curb here, braking, turning, over. Beautiful. Perfect. That's going to be a third gear corner. And here we're going to want to stay out more, a little bit more mid-track, and then start to work it in. So you were just in a little too early in the carousel. Very nice. Very good.
Tom, do we want to use that apex on turn-in at the kink? That curbing, excuse me?
We can use it, yes. I think, like you see there, that was very well executed at Canada corner turn 12. David was wondering about the apex for Canada. I'm sorry, for the kink, which, yes, we could use that.
I
Not
misspoke. I
necessarily for all
apologize.
cars.
Tom, yeah, not the apex. I did misspeak. The curbing before turning on the left side of
Yeah,
the
the
road.
entry curbing, sure. Yeah, it's possible. It just depends on the car's damper settings. You know, like if it's really a stiff car, it doesn't handle curbs well, not necessarily. But this car, Spec Miatas, yes, you can definitely do that. That's a great point. Very good. Down on the inside, let it unwind. Yep. In an ideal world, we use a little bit of curb on the apex there, just a little bit.
We have a question
Just
here.
like that. Perfect. I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
I think it's, can we see gas and brake pedal while coaching, or just watch the racing line?
I think it'll only end up being the sound from it. I don't think you can see the gas and the brake at that point. Okay, Renaud, I'm going to move on to the next driver. Great job, buddy. Aaron, do you copy?
Tom, is this Aaron Janson on in the black car?
Yes, it is. He's really talented at this, so I think this will be a good opportunity to watch how it's done from the virtual world for sure.
Yeah, my screen is going in and out. It flashes a black screen, so it's a little challenging. For the viewer, we still got a good amount of them. Could you walk the viewer through more than perhaps you even are, thinking a little bit more in mind of what can help them as well as the driver, kind of balance a little bit?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I see what you mean. It is going dark in some areas. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a bandwidth thing or what, but yeah, certainly. So as Aaron's exiting out, he's onto the front straight. He's using all the exit curb there and just kind of giving himself as much real estate as possible. And now we are going under the start line. And what we're looking for is a break point that is not too late, but early enough where we can still get the car to turn in with reasonable momentum. Really focus on light brake pressure there, medium to light brake pressure. Did a great job getting over the curb there in turn one. Braking, now the road tends to flatten out. You pick up grip. Again, he's using a little bit of apex curb to help keep the car rotated there. Doing a very nice job.
Can you talk about passing and defending down into turn 5?
Yeah, so good question. So 5 is one of those places where it's a great opportunity to pass because it is one of the highest speeds on the track with the biggest speed delta when you slow down. All the way to the left inside, it's great passing opportunity. And then in this area of the track, as you crest over this blind area of 6, using all the road, getting back to the right in 7, this is where you want to start to set up that pass, exiting 7 into 8. The logical place will be on the inside down into turn 8 here. Again, doing a great job through turn 8. Back to the left side, and watch the line as he kind of comes down to the inside gradually. This is what he meant by kind of letting it come wide in the middle and then starting to arc it down. I think that was a question we had about that particular line that really worked well for Aaron in that particular case. Now he uses some entry curb like David mentioned earlier. Depending on the car, we can certainly do so. And this is another great passing opportunity into turn 12, Canada corner. You can always pop out to the right as you come down into this right-hander here. Good drafting opportunity down that back straightaway. This is somewhere where if you're in line with somebody, you're really just trying to work on focusing in the exit of the last corner, turn 14, to set yourself up for a drafting opportunity to pass here. You can use a little bit apex curb, use all the exit, and back to power. So really, really good lap. I don't know if Aaron's listening. Aaron, I don't know if you can hear us. Yeah, I don't think his radio channel's hooked up, but he's doing a great job there. We'll move on to another driver.
While you're doing that, Tom, Aaron Johnson was the runner-up last year at the Mazda Road to 24 shootout. Not a lot of experience in sports cars, not a lot of experience in racing. Did some open wheel, again, very little, but was a Team USA winner, which they just choose a couple a year. Some of the best to ever go through our sport went through that program. Aaron's got a bright future ahead of him. So who's up next?
Yeah, he certainly does. And like I mentioned, he's been a part of this Battery Tender Global MX5 Cup E-Series, and he's been racking up the points lately. He had a great result at Road America, so it's been fun watching him develop there as well. Here we are with Rob Hines. I know Rob's got a Spec Miata that we'll chime in with him and see if he's got his radio channel hooked up. Hey, Rob, do you have a copy? Hey, Rob, do you have a copy? I got you, buddy. We're riding on board with you. No pressure here. Keep going, and we'll watch you through. So Rob's doing a good job there. Quick hand motion to get the car with that slip angle we talked about through the kink. Yeah, but you made it work for you there. That looked pretty good using the curb. It's real hard to be precise on iRacing unless you're very dialed in, but doing a great job.
Tom, do you have to reset brake pads in iRacing?
That's a great question. I don't believe so, no. I don't believe that factor is in iRacing. The tire model's there, all that. So There we go with Rob back on track. That's a great question, though, David. Ideal line right there, using the apex curb, letting it track all the way out to the exit. And you know from experience, that little pothole at the exit of turn 3 curb, got to be careful of that one. That'll jump the car. That's okay. No worries. That's what's so much fun about this. Unless you're going for that ultimate lap time, it can be a lot of fun. Yeah, I hear you. It is difficult, but what's really nice, it's such a great tool just to kind of get a rhythm and flow for the track before you go. So, you go in 2 weeks and you're kind of going to be, yeah, I was here mentally very recently, right? Rob's doing a great job through the carousel there. Perfect line. And again, this is a really good sector for Rob through the carousel all the way through the kink. It leads on to this long straightaway, so he could really take advantage of this big sector here.
So Tom, it looked like we left a couple of feet, and I realize it's iRacing, but we left a couple of feet at the turn in of 14. Should we have been all the way over or not?
Yeah, and it's funny, David's asking the same question as Rob's talking about through iRacing right now. So yeah, the turn in for 14 is one where you don't want to turn too early, but if you get in there late, you'll miss the apex. So it's good to have nice, slow, controlled hands and get the car bent down to the apex on the early side, so that way you can use the curb and it continues to help turn the car through the apex.
And upon entry, before you turn, how close should your left tire be to the edge of the road on the left side?
Pretty close, pretty close. I mean, you're going to be within a foot or two of the left side. The problem is if you're too close, you can drop a tire off, and that's detrimental, obviously. But if you're too far towards the middle of the road, you're really leaving a lot of radius on the table. So I would say you're pretty much near the edge of the track, using the peripheral vision to do that rather than your primary, because your primary vision's already turned looking at the apex. Great question. All right, Rob, doing a great job. I'm going to move on to somebody else for the moment. Good work. Planning on being there. Got the plane ticket booked. Hope to see you there. Take care. Yep, absolutely. All right, we're transferring through some other drivers here. Let's see, we've got Richard. I'll type his name in. Richard D. Try not to talk him at the wrong time here.
And
hey, Richard, do you have a copy?
Dean. Yeah, Tom, that may be Dean.
Perfect. Thank you. You're right. I have that in my notes here. Hey, Dean, do you have a copy? All right, buddy, we're riding along with you. Keep going, doing a great job. So you can see Dean used all the road on the entry there. It really helped his radius. Yeah, nice job through 14, Dean. We're just talking about how you used all the entry road. Don't really want to use the curb on the entry, but all the road provided really give you a nice radius through there. Ideal line through one, using some apex curb, helping the car turn, really flowing nice momentum there. Good job. So that was taken in second gear. If you were driving this car for real, in a Spec Miata, in the NC MX-5, that would absolutely be a third gear corner. Very nice, very nice. Maybe using a little too much road at the exit, but that's a good experience there. Yeah, good. Ideally be a little closer down in the apex of 8, but I like your line, your approach to set up the carousel. This is great. From mid-road, you're going to breathe and then bring it back down on the inside. Beautiful. Very, very well done. Yeah, David. So that's a really good example of a different way to approach the carousel than what we saw Aaron run, but yet both worked really effectively. So a lot of fun to be able to play with different things on iRacing, different lines and so forth to see what works. There you go. Very, very nice, Dean. Only thing I can offer to you is that maybe some of those corners you're using second gear, they'll be third gear. Maybe the balance of the car in this situation you need second, but ultimately, when you're out there in your car, you'll be in third for most of those. Keep going. Doing a great job.
I got a message from Aaron Johnson. He said he could hear everything you had said. He appreciates it. He just didn't have the mic working.
Great.
So that was good to hear.
Great. No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, Dean, we're going to move on to somebody else, buddy. You're doing a great job there. Keep up the good work. Flipping back through, we're riding with Aaron again. He's here at Road America with us, but he'll be at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca tomorrow night for the final round of the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup E-Series. So that should be fun to watch. Good luck tomorrow, buddy. Okay, we're back with Renaud here as he's going down to turn 3. Okay, copy that. We can come back to you if you want. No pressure.
Tom, at turn 3, where should you be on full power in an MX-5?
Yeah, it's a good question, David. So really, I look at most corners, you're going to want to be squeezing back to full power as you're unwinding the steering wheel. That occurs at the apex. So ultimately, when you bend the car in, whether it be turn 3 or very rarely it's other corners, the only caveat to that is high speed corners. High speed corners, you're going to get to power sooner than the apex because you want to set that platform, the rear of the car, sooner. Great question. A lot of corners at Road America, you're going to be squeezing power on at the apex because they're 90-degree corners. But places like the Carousel, the Kink, turn 13, these are corners where you're going to actually turn in with some throttle to help settle the car. You can see Renaud's using a nice line. Very good line through the carousel there. Good patience. Used all the road at the exit. Very nice. Flying through the kink. I was using all the road there. Nice work. Beautiful, beautiful run onto the front straightaway, really getting some good momentum. One thing I mentioned as another driver is I know the balance of the car is best in second gear in some of these corners, but ultimately, if you ever get to Road America in real life, these corners will all be third gear. Gonna scroll through here. We got Aaron and Renaud on track. I think Andrew's working with Chris here. And Nick, he's got a cool paint scheme there. It's 9 o'clock, guys, and I just want to thank you all for attending this webinar. Apologies for some of the technical glitches we encountered here in the second half, but hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight as to what exactly iRacing is all about, how you can utilize it to to refine your craft, to learn a new circuit. Lots of opportunities there. And, worst case scenario, you hopefully got some nice information from Andrew and myself in the track walk tutorial there. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and thank you for Mazda Motorsports for hosting us, and good luck at the June sprints and the runoffs this year. Thank you.
Tom and Andrew, thank you guys for taking the lead on the webinar, and some gentlemen who have really been putting in a lot of time on this as well. I want to make sure we pay credit to our appreciation, and that's Jared Thomas and Michael Carter, helping some of our racers through these sessions. So again, thank you guys very much, and thank you all for choosing to race Mazda. And for those going to the June sprints, good luck. But next time you're out on the racetrack, good luck, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these with you soon. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you, David. Good night, guys.